Make sure we live on Facebook. Look like we're live. All right, let's rock.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to I am your host, Tyrone Bridges. Let's get it.
Check. Check. 1, 2. Welcome, everybody.
Check.
We're here live
Check.
with attorney Bill Amadeo. And
Welcome, everybody.
we are about to have a discussion, a very important discussion. And I'm about to turn it over to him so we could start this discussion off. And let's get it cracking, Bill. The floor is yours.
All right, what's going on, Tyrone?
All right, what's happening?
So today we're going to talk about mental health in the criminal justice system. I want to explain to the people what the defense lawyer should be doing when you have somebody who you think has diminished capacity, what the mental health court is, and how we're going to play that out. Are we tagged up and everybody? We good to go on both pages?
Let me make sure you're tagged. I'm going to share this on your page.
Cool.
Let me see if I can share it on. You can go ahead and rock. I'm going to go ahead and do the share, and you go ahead and do what you got to do.
So the first thing people need to understand is that whenever you have a defendant that's in our care that may have a mental health issue, it's not an option to file a competency. And we'll talk about the competency in a minute. It's actually malpractice if you don't file it. And the long and short of that is when a competency is requested by a defendant, you're asking the Center for Forensic Psychology to do an evaluation. What we're trying to say is the defendant capable of proceeding? Now, we're going to discuss the bullshit that gets attached with that, because far too often people have competencies ordered and they just get flushed through the system. I think last time I checked, 83% of competency tests that are requested, the defendant is deemed competent. Trovius Starr, we worked together on some cases. Tro was telling me he had a client that was urinating himself in court, and the forensic center said he was fine, understand what was going on. So there's a problem with the mental health aspect of the criminal justice system. Let's talk some basics first. There's two tests we look at. There's competency to stand trial, which should be filed at the district court level. And then there's a criminal responsibility test, which is usually filed at a circuit court level if the case is moving forward. Now, let's stop there for a minute. I said district court and circuit court. What happens now? Let's play a hypothetical. Let's say we have a defendant who's charged with a misdemeanor, and the only place they'll ever be is district court. It's pretty rare that the defense counsel will file a competency for somebody on a misdemeanor. So it's almost like you have to have a heightened charge to be evaluated. I mean, that's a problem to begin with. If you're not charged with a high enough crime, we're not going to send you to the forensic center because it's going to clog up the system. That's what people feel. So that means mental health issues are disregarded on low-end felonies and misdemeanor charges. And I think what people need to understand, and this is a concept that's been lost, and it's a concept that's spreading like a plague in our county, that you're not guilty because you were charged with a crime. Let's not forget that. People seem to forget about that. You're charged, not convicted. The simple charge, you're still innocent until proven guilty. What we're trying to state here is when there's a mental health issue, we got to magnify that thing. So the competency to stand trial, that's the first thing you file. And what happens is the Center for Forensic Psychology will interview your client. Now, they'll usually interview them alone, and they'll tell the client that anything you say is not privileged. There's actually no constitutional right to have a lawyer at a psychological test. So here's a danger, Ty. Sometimes people that work at the Center for Forensic Psychology, they want to be cops. So they want to find information out for the prosecutor to help build the case. They make you sign away your confidentiality. And I had one case in an outside county where the psychologist literally peppered my guy for an hour trying to get him to confess to a crime. Guy had mental health issues. He called me crying. I never confessed, Bill. So I called an individual up and said, what are you doing? And they said, well, he signed the consent form. He signed the consent form to be evaluated if he was capable of standing trial. He did not sign up for an hour interrogation for you to try to give the prosecutor a chance to bolster their case. Now think about this. If a defense lawyer is sending somebody for this test, and the individual might be interrogated about the alleged crime, what are we doing here? The forensic center should not be an extension of the prosecution. If we're sending somebody there for mental health issues, what the forensic center should be doing, looking up their school records, looking up if they had any prior stays in hospitals, looking up their history as it pertains to the medical aspect, not the legal aspect. So then what happens is, quite often, the center will give a report to the prosecutor. Usually the judge will rubber stamp that report. I had one hearing for a kid. I cross-examined that woman for about 2 hours for all the things she didn't do. She lied in the report. She admitted she lied in the report. They still said, well, she's qualified to make the determination, so we're going to deem the kid competent. That worked out, but I mean, it's kind of a scary thing. If we are supposed to turn to mental health professionals to help young people in need, and those mental health professionals are either going to rubber stamp them or try to interrogate them about the allegations, imagine going to a shrink and the shrink provides information to the prosecutor to fuck over your case. That's a problem. It's a major problem. So competency to stand trial is about the defendant being able to understand what's going on. And they'll usually ask you a series of questions. Do you know who the prosecutor is? Do you know what the defense lawyer does? Do you know what the judge does? You know, and the answers that come across as competent are horrifying. I had one kid, he goes, well, the prosecutor's supposed to lock me up. She goes, okay, he understands what's going on. Wait a minute. Wait, that's not what the prosecutor's supposed to do, by the way. The prosecutor's supposed to present evidence they feel may have equated to a crime. The judge determines sentencing. The prosecutor sits closer to the jury because they have the burden of proof. Do you think anybody at the forensic center fucking understands what I just said? Because that's the type of shit we should be questioning when somebody goes in. To say that I know the prosecutor is trying to lock me up and that's a valid answer that you understand what's happening, that's horrifying. I had one psychologist, she put in her report, and this is something that's horrifying. She puts in a report, the defendant has a history of being bipolar, has a history of schizophrenia, had IEPs during school, has a tough time maintaining their lifestyle. Based on all these findings, we find the defendant competent. What do we learn from that? We learn that the standard for competency is so low that you could be a mentally challenged individual with clinical diagnosis and still be deemed competent in the criminal justice system. Let's stop right there. You have any questions on that?
No, that's crazy, man.
Okay.
That's crazy, bro.
So the criminal responsibility test, that's more of a circuit court thing. What we're saying there is even if the defendant understands what's going on at trial, did their mental defect negate an element of a crime that we can't try this person? That is usually a heightened burden. Now we got a few problems here. Criminal responsibility tests are taking up to 4 to 6 months to occur. So if you have a defendant who is not on bond, they're in custody, you need these tests done, you're hoping the psychologist does it at the jail. Well, here's another problem we have. This has been something I've been screaming about. And I know COVID's a scary thing. If we're going to test someone's mental stability, should we do it on Zoom or should we do it in person? Because what's happening is we're doing it on Zoom now. So we have young men and women, but mostly it's more men that have these competency issues according to the stats. But we have young individuals being tested on a Zoom call, and their future could be determined based on the psychologist report on the Zoom call. I mean, you can't tell if somebody's twitching or what's going on. How many times does Zoom calls break out? You know, you can't really study somebody on Zoom. If we can't do an evidentiary hearing on a capital case on Zoom, and we cannot do a jury trial on Zoom, how the fuck can we determine if somebody has mental capacity on Zoom? But that's where we're at right now. We're in this situation where those that are most in need are the ones being overlooked.
Wow.
And I will tell you this, when it comes down to race, let's break it down. From what I understand, most of the Black defendants I have that may have had mental health issues growing up, they never sought therapy as a kid. So there's a bias because people are saying, well, now you have this Black defendant who's 26 years old and they never once were diagnosed with anything, so they must be fine. Well, there could be a number of reasons they weren't diagnosed. Number one, the school system failed them. Number two, maybe their family thought it was weak to go to therapy. I do see a bias when somebody, and I have clients obviously that have millions of dollars and clients that are indigent. I see the clients that have money, which are usually from upper class white, getting a better shot at the forensic center than the Black kid from Ipsy. So I got one of those kids right now. I can't talk about the case, but I will tell you, this kid has not only slipped through the system. I mean, if he ends up going to prison, he's vulnerable. In addition to not knowing what the hell's going on, he's never been in the prison system before. That would be just fresh meat for people. And that's my fear right now. You know, I'm like, it's one thing to be at a county jail, which is not fun. It's another thing to graduate to the prison system. And when you graduate to MDOC, it's a whole different world. You don't, unless you experience that, you can't really intelligently speak about it. And, you know, I will say, though, for anybody with mental health issues, and we could blame Governor Engler on this because he did away with a lot of mental health options for people back in the day. We don't need this. We don't need that. The problem with some of these individuals, we don't know where to put them. I won a murder case in Detroit. The kid was deemed not competent. And it took us, I believe, 6 months to get him a bed at the forensic center. In the meantime, he is rotting away in the Wayne County Jail. In the Wayne County Jail, let me just explain this to those of you that don't know. The Wayne County Jail versus the Washtenaw County Jail. And the last thing I want to do is come off as a Jerry Clayton supporter, because God knows me and Clayton are not on the same page. But the Washtenaw County Jail is like a fucking 5-star resort compared to the Wayne County Jail. Okay. In the Wayne County Jail, it is one step below or the equivalent of the prison system. The Washtenaw County Jail may not be a fun place, but I will tell you, you don't see the shit that happens in Wayne. So when I see a mentally challenged young Black man who can't defend himself in the Wayne County Jail, and I call the nurse to say, is he getting his meds? And the nurse is screaming at me, I don't have time to talk to you. And I don't have lawyers call me anyway. There's a fear factor sticking in. What can I do? In Wayne County, when you have a client with a mental health issue, you have to go to, I believe it's the 6th floor. And the 6th floor has one attorney room. So therefore, if there's 3 people with mental health issues, 2 of them are not able to see their lawyer the way they should because we're blocked up. Now in Washington, credit where credit's due, they'll give you a private room. They're going to do what they can to make sure the attorney can at least talk. I don't think it's right that people are shoved in and out of there, but I will give them credit where credit's due. It's easier for a defense lawyer to communicate with a client incarcerated in the Washington County Jail, in the Wayne County Jail. People forget this, and this is the deal with mental health too. Every county is like its own little language. The way you practice crim law in Macomb is not the way you do it in Wayne. Wayne is not how you do it in Shiawassee. Shiawassee is not how you do it in Washington. And if you don't know the language of each particular court, you're going to hurt your client. You should just take a case in the court you understand. Now let's sterilize that for a minute. Let's juice it up. When you have someone with a mental health issue, the way that prosecutor's office and jurists look at it is very different from county to county. One of the problems is this is not black and white, Ty. This is the shade of gray. We're in the deep end of the pool, okay? And some people are drowning.
Right.
What we're trying to do is figure out how the fuck do we get them back to shore? And we're not there right now. We're not there. But, with these tests, the odds of somebody with mental health issues coming back deemed incompetent, you're still in an uphill battle, and that's wrong. Explain to me how somebody who's schizophrenic and bipolar is deemed competent to understand what the hell's going on.
That's a good one.
They don't know what's going on when they're in that mental state. We have to go above and beyond in those situations. And this is where prosecutors, probation officers, judges, and defense lawyers should be working as a team. I know I was in the gym early this morning and we were texting, and we keep the common theme in the text message you and I have is teamwork. We don't see it. We don't see enough teamwork. We got these divisions. Who wants to be the Facebook king or queen, or who wants to make this amount of money? But at the end of the day, it's a lot of shit falling through the cracks right now. If I hate somebody, but it's for the betterment of a third party, especially a young man or woman, we should be working as a team, no matter what our personal feelings are towards one another.
Right.
There's issues bigger than our personalities. I know that sounds weird coming from me, but I'm just being real about shit right now.
That's the truth.
We have young individuals, and in Washington, we have a lot of young Black individuals that have never been properly diagnosed before they entered the criminal justice system. And once they enter that system, for a lawyer to pick up on these deficiencies for the first time, the first thing opposition is going to say is, well, if it's never been diagnosed before, why now? Because nobody looked into it. If somebody has learning disabilities, and that's something I want to tell you, so many young people have learning disabilities, but they'll either work through it. They'll work through it. And people seem to think, well, because they work through it, they're good to go. That's not the case. The way you or I may focus on an issue may not be the way Joe or Tina focus on the issue. What do we need to know? We need to know what's Joe and Tina's backstory. And just because Joe and Tina never had a clinical evaluation doesn't mean that Joe or Tina should not have had that clinical evaluation. The frustrating part for me is when somebody with mental health issues does not have anybody look into it until they enter the system. Because once you enter this system, it's a fucking bitch to get out of that system. Once you're in there. And with young people, especially young people of color, they have been the most neglected in the mental health system. There's no question about that.
That's cool.
We have to peel that onion. We got people's lives in the hands right now. So when you get these tests, there's 3 results that come back. Either the defendant is competent, which is like that 83% number, or they're incompetent, which is a rarity. But then this third thing arose: incompetent but restorable. What incompetent but restorable means is even though the defendant has mental health issues, we feel with the proper amount of treatment, they could be restored. Well, here's the problem with that. And I agree with that diagnosis. However, what we need to do as defense lawyers, this is one case out of county I'm screaming on right now. I think I'll get where I need to be, but it's been a complete fucking fight, is if they're restorable 3 months from now, but they were not competent at the time of the allegation, how are we supposed to deal with that in the court system? Are we supposed to overlook the mental illness that may have been under control and was not able to be controlled until they ended up in the penitentiary? I mean, how do we rewind that tape? We have to give them somewhat of a pass if they were not competent at the time the allegation occurred. That's my opinion. Not all prosecutors share that belief. So we're kind of in a war of words right there. And you just don't, and I don't care. I know people will be pissed off by me saying this. I don't fucking put any faith in that competency center. There's a couple good psychologists, and there's a bunch of people that are just shoveling shit. I had one guy that had 2 competencies, and I swear to you, that psychologist copy and pasted most of the stuff from report 1 to report 2. And when I called them out on it at a hearing, they said, well, okay, maybe I did do that. However, I still feel he's competent. And again, how'd you do your test? Well, I Zoomed him. How'd the Zoom call go? Well, he was fidgeting. Yeah, you know why? Because the guy's got a fucking mental health issue. So he can't focus on your questions. Well, because he didn't answer in a certain way, I deemed him to be competent. So I questioned, okay, well, wait. What answers make somebody competent or not competent in the moment? Can you explain that to me? So, well, it's just something you know when you say it. Really? It sounds like a 1978 Supreme Court case. What's porn? Well, I know it when I say it. Okay. So I don't even know what that fucking means, Ty. I know it when I see it. So if the shrink's having a bad day, is they going to take that out on the defendant? And how much of an evaluation can you do in an hour and a half hour on Zoom? 90-minute Zoom call. A 90-minute Zoom call determines what this person's future should be.
Wow.
Now, one of the things that transitions into the mental health court, let's talk about that. Mental health court currently in Washington, Judge Valvo does it in the 15th District Court. And Karen Finney and Pat Chase are the probation officers, and an amazing team. They really care about people. They want to get people help. The problem with the mental health court, the 15th District, is, and it's only one problem, it's a district court, so they don't take felonies in there. So if you're charged with a felony, at least at this point, you don't have an option to seek mental health treatment.
Wow.
Now, Tracy Vanderberg and Judge Carol Conkey and such, they're working on a mental health court for the circuit court. And, I was a big supporter of Tracy Vanderberg. I'm sure she's going to do great things with that. The problem we're trying to find right now is how do we get funding for that? Like in Shiawassee, they did an amazing job with their mental health court. I was one of the ones that spearheaded that. Judge Stewart put me on as the criminal defense lawyer day 1. I couldn't keep at it because it was just too much travel. Like, you have to be there Tuesday at 1:00, so you need a local attorney for it. Like, I'm in 16 counties, so it's hard for me to be in one place at one time.
Right.
However, what they did was amazing, but the issue with Shiawassee, one of the reasons Shiawassee cannot quite adopt, or Washington cannot adopt what Shiawassee did completely, is I think Shiawassee got like $50,000 or $100,000 for services. We would need millions of dollars for services in Washington County, because you got to pay the psychologist, you got to pay the workers, you got to pay a substance abuse counselor if there's plays a role. Like if somebody has a drug addiction and a mental health issue, that's even the deeper part of the pool, because sometimes the substance abuse issue can mask the mental health issues. And there's no way to determine how do we help somebody in that situation. So we need a lot of money in Washtenaw County to really give it the services we need, as opposed to a smaller county where if they get grant money for like 50 grand, it might be enough to get the ball rolling. But one of the things Judge Stewart did, which was an amazing move, was he said, well, I'm not just going to say you can only do misdemeanors or you can only do felonies. I got to look at each individual case, and that's what we need in Washtenaw. And I think that's the direction we're heading. But in the meantime, it's a lot of people that are just falling through the cracks. Right now, as a defense lawyer, you may try to buy time until the mental health court and circuit court's been finalized to try to get a needy defendant into the program. But while you're trying to buy that time strategically for that defendant, they're going to be in the jail. So, and obviously jail is better than prison, but at the end of the day, we have people that need help. Now, a mental health court is an amazing thing when run properly, because your whole point, Ty, is to rehabilitate.
Right.
Rehabilitation of somebody of average intellect is not the same as somebody with mental health issues. Rehabilitation may be putting them on meds for the first time in their life they never used. What's going to be the reaction to those meds? Rehabilitation may be helping them find a job in the community, a job that you or I may say, okay, we wouldn't do that, but for them, it might be a home run. The problem with that is we can't have one set of rules here. We got to have a game plan for every single defendant that has mental health issues. And more importantly, we need the competency center to change their structure. This is more of a question for the legislator, but the reality is you're not going to tell me 83% of people that go into that forensic center are good to go. I'm not buying. I'm calling bullshit on that. Calling complete bullshit on that. How do we fix it? Well, it's got to start with teamwork. It's got to start with prosecutors, defense lawyers, and probation officers getting on the same page and saying, okay, let's get a game plan to get a, when we get to the line of the scrimmage, we may have to call an audible. We can have the best plan in the world, but Joe Smith from Ipsy may have an outside the box diagnosis. And here's something that pisses me the fuck off all the time. If you have an outside the box diagnosis, that does not mean you're competent. Because that's the general consensus. Well, if we don't really know what it is, we're just going to say they're good to go. Oh, time out. If we don't know what it is, we need to do more research into what's going on there.
Exactly.
We need to know what's the underlying issue going on here. Right now, we're pushing people through. And a lot of times I'll be on the phone with a shrink afterwards and they'll say to me, well, you have a really tough prosecutor in this case, so you should just try to get them a better plea. Well, if I get them a better plea, aren't they still doing time? Aren't they still going to be vulnerable? So You're okay. So I get somebody 15 months instead of 15 years. I'm over that 12-month cap. They're still doing time in prison. So then I could try the case and say, fuck this, I'm going to trial, which I have no problem doing, but I may have to argue that the individual is guilty but mentally ill. Well, now I got to hope when I'm doing my voir dire for jury selection, I have people that understand you have to overlook the fact that their own lawyer is saying they're guilty. You're saying, yeah, but they're guilty, but mentally ill. How many people in that jury box are going to listen to beyond guilty? Imagine both lawyers are saying the individual's guilty, and the one lawyer is saying, but I got an explanation for why they're guilty. Is the average person who's ever experienced anything like that going to get past that word guilty? This is a problem.
Right.
You almost put that defendant behind the 8 ball when you make the guilty but mentally ill argument.
Bill, we had a question from one of the viewers.
Sure.
I wanted to make sure I get that in, and this is probably a good segment. The question was, should the defense lawyer go to the forensic center with their client?
Technically, they're not allowed to.
They're not allowed to.
Yeah.
And could you explain why they're not allowed to?
Sure. It's like taking a police polygraph. The Sixth Amendment tells us when the right to counsel attaches. And nobody, when that was written, obviously, and modified the state of Michigan, nobody considered mental health issues at the time it was written. So for the lawyer to have a right, having a right to a lawyer is what we call a critical stage. A critical stage, there's a lot of different critical stages in the criminal justice system, but it usually has to do with the court system or talking to a police officer. The feeling is, guys, when you're talking to a mental health professional, you're not going to be under custodial interrogation. So why do we need the lawyer in that situation? Well, here's why. Because if it becomes an interrogation situation like it did in that one case, and there's no right to counsel, a bad psychologist or social worker can use as an opportunity to go after somebody. But unfortunately, where we stand right now, the lawyer is not entitled to be at that meeting. Ty, you went mute. You went mute. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
There you go.
you answered everything. I'm sorry. You
Okay.
answered everything that was on the question form. So go ahead and you got the floor.
So where we stand right now is we need a concerted effort, especially in Washtenaw County, to figure out what do we do before somebody gets into the criminal justice system. You know, how do we do that? And that's where schools and lawyers should be working together. I really think anybody in elementary school or even high school level should be being examined at an early age. Because God forbid, if the 8-year-old kid in Ipsy ends up being a 20-year-old defendant 12 years later, and a good defense lawyer says, well, you know what? They had mental health issues from the earliest age, and I could go back to their school records. That's going to help massage that case.
Now question, just plain policy advocate.
Yeah.
If that could be a possibility, wouldn't that be something that goes into the, I want to say, the school's part of the school's IEP plan, or a part of the district's IEP program or something to that effect? Because normally when they identify a student in the school at an early age with a mental illness, they usually have a special ed program that they have them in, which creates the IEP. And if that was one of the criterias on the IEP, that would be beautiful, because that way you would push the start button
Right.
on any type of mental health history.
I mean, that would be great, and that's probably a question for the school board.
Well, you know what? Since we own it, let's challenge our pod ability here, and let's look at the school board.
Okay.
The school board, and maybe the board president, maybe WISD would probably be a good place to look, because WISD, I guess that's the central. Scott Menzel was going out, somebody else is coming in, so that would be something to look into.
Is that an election coming up? I don't even know. Is that an election?
He's going to another district.
Okay.
I saw that in the paperwork. So that would be wonderful to be able to bring that up.
Yeah. With you.
I mean, because you got a number of kids that are in the system at an early age catching cases. Well, cases over expulsions, I should say.
Right. And I do feel, and this is just, and let me be clear before I say this, I haven't studied this yet, but I'm going on a limb and saying that the school system in Dexter or Chelsea might have more resources than the school system in Ypsilanti. And with that being stated, a child should not suffer based on their socioeconomic situation. I think we need something across the board where there's funding for any school system to grab that money to help the child.
Then I think that should become a state or regional project that,
Yeah.
or a regional program that all of them could tap into. We should be able to pull in one of the lawmakers and ask that question or pose that question for them to go back to the drawing board. Maybe Senator Jeff Irwin or Yusef Rabi.
Mm-hmm.
One of them asked them the question and see if that would be something that we could either get that played out or even spend around for questions and answers, or even a Zoom forum, because I would love to know what the public think about this.
Right.
Hearing more of the public input would be wonderful. So if you think that this would be a good idea to speak with the public about, and just, early talking, that's what I've always talked about. Prevention is early intervention.
Yeah.
We have to be early with this, because the next school year or the next spring, we already know it's going to be buck wild. Things going to pretty much cool down in the winter, just like it did last year.
And I think it's definitely something we should do publicly, just because anytime there's a chance to help a young person, we should be working as a team to do it. No matter
That's
what.
right. That's right.
And no child should go without clothing. No child should go without food. No child should not be afforded a chance at higher education. And no child, which here's the add-on, should not be given the help they need if there's psychological issues. If we start basically disintegrating the system based on economics, and I'm telling you this as a kid that grew up really poor, if I had an issue back in the day, I was just told to tough it out. But the kids from the suburbs, if they had an issue, they were given every option in the world. Now, coming from being poor to being where I am today, I see a very different way society treats you.
Right.
I can make a call to somebody, say, oh, well, Bill, if I knew it was your client, I would have done something. What the fuck's that got to do with who my client is? The individual needs help. And sometimes I will get somewhere making a phone call because they know, well, this guy's going to be a pain in the ass. He's going to just push the issue. How many lawyers are not pushing that issue? And by the way, if you're doing criminal defense, whether you're doing court-appointed work or big-time retained work, pushing the issue is our motherfucking job description. So fucking push.
Right.
We need to push. And when I look at Dexter versus Ypsilanti, if you ask me, if a child has an issue, a child has an issue. But it should not be based on what you have in the bank or the color of your skin, why somebody has access to resources.
Right.
And that pisses me the fuck off. And I could speak intelligently because I've been on both sides of that equation. My mom was on welfare when I was a kid. So don't anybody ever tell me, well, you got money now, so you don't know what it's like. No, I know what it's like. I know what the fuck. I've been there. Okay. And understanding that, one of the things that makes me different, I don't forget where the fuck I came from. And I know in that area of Atlantic City and certain parts of Ypsilanti, we need to do more to bridge that fucking gap.
Right.
And if we don't do more, we're not doing we're doing everyone a disservice, in my opinion. There should not be that discrepancy between the wealth and poor. Shouldn't be. There should not be that gap between who gets assistance and who doesn't. Should not be determined based on your zip code whether you're going to go to higher education or not. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. And mental health plays a role in all this. We are all coming up short on this issue, Ty. Every one of us, including me. And I don't know what the answer is, but I know we should be working together to fix it. If we don't give a shit, we're setting everybody back.
Right. Well, Bill, I'm thinking the next step or the next meeting should be, if we can pull it off like next week if possible, let's invite somebody from the school district, not in the official capacity of the whole board, but somebody who can actually speak to this. I don't know if there's a special ed director anymore, the director of special ed of the Washington County School District. Maybe who's ever at the WISD, maybe we'd invite them, and
Sure.
maybe Jeff Irwin and Yusuf Rabi, just to have that conversation, that beginning roundtable conversation.
Definitely.
You want to shoot the email, or you want me to shoot the email? It's up to you.
If you have the email addresses, copy me on it. We'll address it as a team.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. I'll have that to you a little bit later on this evening, if not first thing in the morning. And let's begin there, because I think this is a healthy conversation to have. And if I wish that it was any way possible that we can get one of the judges up in that area to weigh in on not necessarily influencing or influence capacity, but a conversational capacity, and talk about this, because this is important. This is very important. This is something that should have been done a while ago.
Right.
I think we're on something, man. You know, teamwork makes the dream work, bro. I mean, just like Miss Grady Hill said, definitely right on time. Right on time. So let's keep this energy going. Hopefully bigger and better things to come with all sides, man, because if we didn't love Washtenaw County, Ypsi, then we wouldn't be having these conversations.
Right.
And I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you now from my heart, man, I appreciate you for even bringing this up. The mental health issues. I was actually going to do a segment on, I thought you knew, on mental health issues during this pandemic and after, and also the identification of the person with mental illness, and what they do, and what is mental illness and everything. We're still trying to work out the details. It's all about me and my stagnance on even scheduling, rescheduling with the people that I've had the conversation with. But if you know any people that would love to come on as a round Zoom form, it's very comfortable. They can sit in their office in the confines of their home and actually really have this conversation, because what's really going to happen, we're going to look down the line later, when this thing get going, and hopefully it gets in progress, and say we did a good thing. And we can't do no wrong, man, when we're helping kids.
There's the kids in Ypsilanti are just as talented as the kids in Ann Arbor or Dexter. The world just needs to know about that. And more importantly, those kids need to know that.
You're right. You're right. Well, thanks,
That's
Bill. Thanks for taking this major step forward. And all of our listeners, we've had plenty of people looking at it and sharing it. And any of y'all that heard this conversation that y'all would like to get involved, Bill would like to give his email address, and you can reach out to Bill. And I'll give mine. You guys can reach me at 2 different emails address. Of course, I have Tyrone Bridges at yahoo.com, or you can reach us at I Thought You Knew Ypsi. That's I Thought You Knew Ypsi, YPSI at gmail.com. That's I Thought You Knew Ypsi at gmail.com. Y'all give us feedback, criticism, praises, cheers, love, comments on what else we should talk about. I know some future topics are going to come up. We're going to talk about Ypsi. We definitely need to talk about Ypsi. I've had some things that I wanted to share, and I've actually had a great conversation with Mr. Lee Osler, the guy who created our national song, our Ypsi national song, the Back to Ypsilanti. And I'm pretty sure he's probably listening to this segment. I'd like to bring him on and one day and get him to talk to these young folks, because Lee Osler is a very powerful voice, verbally and also mentally when you talk to him. Very powerful brother. I want to share our story because he helped me, and he got a song that I actually helped out called the Ypsi Dance. I did the scratches on it.
That's cool.
And that was the time right before I went to get locked up. But we also have one last question that from our viewer: how well is law enforcement trained to look for mental illness as a topic? That would be a good topic too. That would be an excellent topic. So yeah, we would love to bring law enforcement in. That's important.
Sure. And I would tell you right now, they're not trained properly to look for mental illness. And in fairness to the police, and obviously me and the cops have some issues when I'm a criminal defense lawyer, but it's usually an afterthought. You know, it'd be great if there were some ways to detect things before a charging document came in. I'll tell you one quick story. Do we have time?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I had a kid that was at U of M, and he was having a seizure, having a bad reaction, and he hit a nurse's bottom, and the nurse demanded that he was charged with CSC. The kid has a history of mental health issues, right? And the case got taken care of. But I said to the cop, who I don't like, this particular officer in charge, I said, did you know that this client had A, B, C, and D? He goes, well, if I would have known that, I would have attached it to the report, but no, I didn't know it. Okay, well, so we're not even going to try to interview a defendant? And by the way, I don't want my people talking to the cops anyway, but isn't it your job as an officer to try to look at both sides? And the fact that this young man, who was a young black man, hit a white nurse on the ass while he was having a seizure, could have went to prison or been on the sex registry, is completely fucked up. And for the cop to say, well, I didn't know about his mental health issues. Did you look into it? Did you wonder why he was there in the first place?
Right.
Did you look at any reason, not into his HIPAA records, but did you ask the physicians, why was this young man admitted to the hospital? So I'm going to tell you, he didn't go there to be hitting some girl in the ass. He went there because he was having a fucking seizure and a mental health outbreak. What the fuck?
Wow.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You know, and this cop, if you're watching, officer, you know, instead of stalking me on Facebook, why don't you do your fucking job and make sure before you request charges at the prosecutor is the whole fucking story.
Wow.
Okay. So, glad I mentioned that.
Well, you have it. You heard on the show. We definitely do need to look into things like this and also bring out the funk when we have to. And Bill, I thank you for your time. I thank you for this structure for this conversation. And we'll have some more. And like I said, we will be contacting these school officials and hopefully get Senator Jeff Irwin and also Yusuf Rabi in on it. You know, the more proactive we are, the better our school district could be. And our community.
Let me just say, I will put my email address in the chat for everyone.
Okay.
And I will say this to people because I get emails all the time. I'd rather you email me. There's never a charge for answering a question, okay? So don't feel hesitant. I'm going to have to pay my lawyer for that. I will not charge for answering a question. I will say this, though. I'd much rather you send me that message as a secured email as opposed to Facebook Messenger. So I don't trust Facebook Messenger, and I will never break the privilege. I think there's too many hackers on social media that if it's a sensitive nature, I'd rather you just say to me, hey, Bill, here's the email, or can you call me and give me a number, as opposed to putting things you may not want out there onto a social media email like this. I feel Gmail in the proper settings much safer than Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
And I would never want somebody's private stuff being exploited. I wouldn't share it myself, but God forbid I got hacked or you got hacked and you put something in there. That's dangerous.
Gotcha.
I'd rather have an email coming. So
okay, so you want to share it now, and how you want it to how you want it to be shared? You want it to be on the chat trend?
I'll verbalize it and then I'll put it in the chat trend so you guys can have both. Okay.
All right, go ahead and I'll type it on Facebook as you chat it.
Best email is my last name, AMA DEO at Ann Arbor ESQ
ESQ.
ESQ, yeah, .com.
All right, let me make sure I get it correctly. It's Amadeo at Ann Arbor ESQ.com.
Correct. And I just text it to you on here too.
All right. All right, everybody. We got the information shared like we supposed to. Y'all got his email on Facebook. Y'all got his email on Zoom for those who can't see the chat. And once again, y'all know we're going to pick up this conversation where we left off at another time, at another date, with more energy. We're going to bring some more people on with us, and hopefully we'll definitely be able to open up to the social media network. But somehow, if Facebook is down for some odd reason, y'all can catch this live Zoom. I'll be broadcasting live on YouTube. I actually replay this live on YouTube. Y'all be able to hear what we talked about. Please, if you're on YouTube, Tyrone Bridges YouTube channel, please follow me. And also, I do mixes live. Go through Spreaker and look up Tyrone Bridges podcast, and you actually see my DJ symbol, DJ Quick Mix, and hit their follow. Sometime I'll be doing podcast information, and sometime I'll do live mixes. I always like to take requests, any type of request, any type of music. I pretty much can mix anything, even rock and roll. I've been doing it for a long time. And that's something that I do because it makes people happy. And Bill, thank you again. Thank you and your law firm, man, for being real people and wanting to help out these kids in the community just like I do, and just like a lot of other people with that passion. Let's keep that same energy. And thank you, bro, for having me.
Thanks for having me, Ty. I appreciate it.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Peace.
Later.